So I think I've finished up the retopology here. I'll open up the properties panel and turn on ambient occlusion just so we can see things a little better. A couple of these pieces I just want to talk about briefly. This piece here, let's zoom in on that. This piece I did a little bit differently than the original high-res version, and let me show you what I mean. Here in the high-res version, you can see it kind of angles down pretty far like that and then up, whereas in the retopology I kind of just went straight across. Let me bring them both back. You can kind of see, and what I was trying to do is encompass this area so that these pieces will be a part of this and that they will have a place on the normal map in this UV island. This piece here, let's zoom into this one. This one, I didn't put a hole in it. You can see here that in the high-res version, there's a hole in it, and that's fine. I'm going to try it like this because I'm thinking that I'm going to get in the normal map something that's kind of like this, kind of hinting that there's a hole there, but we won't be able to see through it. So I'm going to try it and see. I just didn't want to add more polygons to this. We'll see how that works. And also I wanted to mention over here, let me go over to my high-res version here, to the high poly version, and let me zoom into this piece. Now, this piece I didn't duplicate or create for the low poly version. What I did is I took these faces here and pulled them out in the X sum to try and encompass or to try and lay over this piece so that hopefully this information will be picked up in the normal map. You can see how I've pulled it out a little bit farther than the actual high resolution piece. So I'm just trying to plan ahead a little bit and hopefully pick these high detail pieces up with the normal map so I don't have to create geometry for it. In addition, I created the low poly version of these pieces here in here, and really all this was just duplicating them, taking them to a new layer and removing the modifiers and as many edge loops as I could. That's all I did for these here. So that pretty much wraps up the retopology. Now, when we actually bake the normal map and apply it to the low poly model, there may be tweaks we need to make. But for now, I think this is pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and turn off that ambient occlusion again here. And before we bake a normal map, ambient occlusion map, before we do any texturing, we really need to create a UV map, because those textures, the normal map, ambient occlusion map, any textures we create are all actually going to be applied to the UV map and not to our 3D model. Ultimately, those texture maps will be applied to the 3D model in a program like Unity, but for now we need to apply all of our textures to a two-dimensional UV map. So to do that, let's begin by just combining all of these pieces into one object. I'll just select everything and press Ctrl J. And there's our single object. I'll go ahead and call this M249 machine gun underscore low for low poly. I'll then open up my UV editor by coming over here to the screen layout and clicking UV editing. And so here is the gun in our UV editor. I'll go ahead and tab into edit mode, and it's got this see-through quality to it. I'm not a big fan of that, so what I'm going to do is come down here and turn this on, this limit selection to visible. And then I will go ahead and just select everything with the A key. And if we were texturing this in a 2D image manipulation program like Photoshop or GIMP or Krita, we would really need to take some care and unwrap this in a way so we knew what UV islands corresponded to what parts of the gun. In other words, I would need to know, say, what UV island was the shoulder rest or what was the scope. I would need to know those things since I'd be texturing it manually in a 2D image manipulation program. However, we're going to be texturing this with a 3D program, Substance Painter. And because of that, I don't really care where the UV islands are or what they look like even. So I'm going to take a little shortcut, and I'm going to use Blender's Smart UV Project to unwrap this automatically. So all I'll do is just select everything, press U, and I'll choose Smart UV Project. And I'll just click OK. Now I'll come over here and turn off Stretch UV Bounds. And it doesn't look quite right. There are things that seem kind of stretched here. So what I'm going to do is go back to object mode, and I'm going to press Control A, and I'm going to apply the transforms for rotation and scale. I'll go back to edit mode, select U, and click Smart UV Project one more time. And OK. And there we go. So now that's looking a little bit better. I'll come over here and click the stretch display so it shades it blue so we can see it a little better. But applying your scale helps in so many ways, in so many instances and tools like mirroring and beveling and UV mapping. So there is our UV map, and it is ugly. It does not look very good at all, but it's going to be fine, I think, because Substance Painter will be able to figure this out and apply the textures to the object based on this UV map. All right, so let's tab back into object mode. Let's save this. And now what we can do is begin setting up our bake. We want to be able to bake the high resolution information from this object to this one. Now, currently, this is a lot of different objects. And ultimately, we're going to need to combine all these together because not only will we try baking a normal map here in Blender, we're also going to do it in Substance Painter so you can see the difference. But before we do that, let's go ahead and combine these together a bit. So I need to go through and figure out what objects still have modifiers on them, like this one here. Let's apply this. Now, I just want to point out that you can bake normals from an object that has a subsurf or mirror modifier on it. So I'm not doing this specifically for Blender. I am doing this specifically for when we take it into Substance Painter. All right, I'm just going to apply this, and I'm just going to go through here and find all my modifiers and apply them. Now for this object here, it doesn't have a modifier on it. However, it is a curve. I have this curve panel here. So I think what I will do is convert this curve into a mesh. So I'll press Alt-C and convert to a mesh. There we go. And then I'll continue moving on and applying all the rest. All right, now that I have all of those applied, I'll go ahead and select everything and press Control-J and combine everything, and we'll go ahead and call this one, I'll just copy that and we'll call this one M249 Machine Gun High. So we have our high resolution model and our low poly retopologized model. All right, so I think in the next video we are ready to begin baking out our normals.